Thank you, Kevin. Stylianos here. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for the speakers that have given us some really good themes within the industry here. So my name is Roger. You can call me Roger the Doger. That's normally how I say it, but I don't doge anyone. But just put a bit of humor on a day like this. I've got here a panel of 4 members. I would like to let them introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about what they do. Shall I start with Lise, please?
Yes, hello, good afternoon. I'm Lise Duetoft. I represent Hoegh Autoliners. Hoegh Autoliners is a car carrier. We operate roughly 40 ships that on average take 7,000 cars, and I am responsible for strategy and for digital and the people function.
Thank you.
Hi, pleasure. Aviv. I'm with Thetis AI. We're a coming startup in voyage optimization round. We developed a voyage optimization tool based on AI models. And thank the panel and thank the forum. Happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Konstantinos. I'm with DeepSea AI. We've been around for around 10 years now, and we use high-frequency data from vessels in order to optimize vessels in various ways, starting from analytics, through voyage optimization, through autonomous navigation.
Hi, everyone. Okay, that works now. Hi, I'm Stylianos, Papageorgiou. I'm with lomarlabs. We're part of the Lomar Shipping Group. We're a venture catalyst working to advance maritime innovation. We engage with startups that bring interesting new technology to the industry, and we try and support them through the difficult journey of making it to the market and getting adopted by everyone.
Thank you so much. I would like to start this session really with a quote from NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang. Basically says that software is eating the world, but AI is eating software. So we basically know that in essence, this quote captures how AI is not just another tool, but a transformative force within the all, say, sectors of industry that we are living in. And so we want to really explore a little bit what does it represent in the current shipping framework that we live in. So in this case, I will really start, first of all, is kind of to capture with the input of our panelists here, giving an overview. How is AI in the current framework within the shipping industry? So I would like probably each one of you give your view. Can I start with Stylianos now? Because you were the last one to present yourself, if it's okay, please. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of adoption of early tools that leverage AI, and that's great. And I'll leave this to my fellow panelists to go into. I'm, looking at it as an investor. I'm seeing the potential of technology and what it can bring, and I think it's a absolutely transformative new energy source that's been created. We think of energy as electric energy or diesel or fuel, chemical energy. AI is an energy in itself, and every industrial revolution that has happened started with the introduction of a new energy source, and that has then carried through the way we make things, the way we transport things, the way we communicate, and ultimately changes society. And I think what we're at the dawn of now is that next wave of change that's going to be driven by AI as an energy. And as a shipping man, I'm also thinking, how's this energy going to be manufactured? What is it going to be powered with? Who's going to transport what it needs to be produced? And just to illustrate what I mean by energy, in software, we're used to paying a license for a software that we can then use as much as we want with no extra cost, other than a little bit of electricity that our computer burns. With AI, you have to pay for tokens or credits that are produced somewhere, and that costs money. And the more you use it, the more you have to pay. So it changes the arithmetic around software.
Thank you, Stylianos. I'll pass the word for Lise, because I think you have a slightly different point of view from Stylianos. Can you add a little bit on what you think about it? What is the state in terms of overview of AI on the shipping industry?
I think shipping in general is probably in the second half of the industry adoption curve. But I do think that AI promises real value for the industry. Shipping generates a lot of data, and AI is very much about spotting patterns and making predictions from big, complex data set. So our industry lends itself towards using AI. And as a shipping company with limited resource and capital, we operate 40 ships. We look for where can we find real value. We get approached by lots of vendors. There's a lot of hype. We hear, all the products have AI, not all do. So we're very focused on finding areas where we can create value in the short term. And without front running, we right now are very focused on fuel savings and saving vessel time. So I should also disclose we are working with Stylianos and DeepSea AI on that.
Lovely, thank you, Liz. Aviv, you might probably have a different point of view because you actually lead a startup, right? What's your take on it currently?
Well, indeed we're not ship owners. So obviously our position is a bit different in the market. The way we see AI, and you could look at AI as sort of a word that's been crushed to profanity level because you've been hearing that for in so many areas. AI could be a sort of a force that meets the industry in multiple directions and multiple sectors. And the way we see it is it's a force that meets the industry not to change it as a whole, but to improve it step by step, where integration and the pace in which AI has been embedded into the industry in all sort of places, whether it's been fuel optimization and fuel savings, could be also in the banking procedures, it could be also in in the maintenance. So slowly AI seeps into the market, into the industry, which you could say about the maritime industry. It is very good in pacing changes with a very steady reasoning behind it. Meaning changes don't happen overnight. However, the changes are going to happen as the future is going to be AI based. So that's where we see ourselves positioning into this AI revolution, or the change in data, which is being driven out of vessels. Nowadays, we had just had a talk earlier about tokenizing vessels on blockchain technology, which is super innovative, and we are obviously thrilled to hear about such endeavors. So we see AI, or machine learning, you call it, as a force who will meet the industry and make it better step by step.
Thank you, Aviv. Just want to not leave Konstantinos outside the frame. I know that you work with Lise and you had a point of view, but from your point of view, where do you stand in terms of AI technology in the current framework?
So I mean, shipping produces an enormous amount of data, as Lisa said. The data comes under two categories. The first is just time series sensor data, which produce a lot of because you've got engines and you've got equipment and you've got speeds and fuel consumption and all of this. And then the second is just document language data, of which there is an enormous amount across the whole of shipping, and it's incredibly unstructured. Until recently, I would say that part of the data was really the bottleneck on being able to make use even of the high-frequency sensor data. Because to interpret all this high-frequency sensor data, you have an enormous amount of context, which is missing. Like, what does it mean? And to understand what it means, you need to dive into all these documents, right? So, I mean, my company was founded before generative AI, using kind of the previous generation of AI originally, which was the discriminative AI, in order to make sense of the high frequency data, and really leveraging our partnerships with customers and kind of our own in-house maritime knowledge to add in the context and be able to solve the problem. So, as Lisa said, number one problem for them is fuel consumption, bring it down. How are you taking the data, model the ship, figure out better speeds, better routes, reduce the fuel consumption. Now that we have generative AI, I think generative AI on its own can do a lot of cool things. It can make paperwork faster, it can automate a lot of processes, but I think the real kind of opportunity here, which is where we're investing, is having it work together with the high-frequency data and the discriminative AI to be able to do what you can do with the high-frequency data even more effectively by combining all this numerical data from the sensors with all this text data, which is given the context.
So just to follow up on that a little bit, because I think the audience might probably look into how can they make money from it, isn't it? A question probably I can just follow up, like what if you were to invest, where would you put your money in this in the current framework that you, like, say, for example, you have just described, Konstantinos?
So in general, or in shipping, or
in shipping with the AI technologies, because there is a lot of opportunity, right? I mean, Aviv here is a startup, and is capturing a very specific part of the market.
So if I was looking specifically to invest in shipping tech, I think I would begin with the Jensen Huang quote that you started with, which is that kind of pure software is being eaten. So I think anything that's just vertical B2B software as a service, I write code that does this, which is how we started, is going to be very difficult nowadays, because anyone can just go into Claude and just make the same software themselves. I think anywhere where either they have a good way of getting data that other people don't have access to, or like us, they've been collecting data for 10 years and have like a large number of ships on them, or where there's a strong hardware component, like they're doing some kind of automation, or that they have some kind of physical device that they've invented, which is protected. I think that is the most immune to being replaced by AI, and also in the best position to leverage AI.
I think to follow up on Konstantinos, take telemetry kits 10 years back. Basically, you had no ROI out of it, because you'd be generating all this information, all this data. You either be limited in the SATCOM to send it back, or you'd be limited with your process capabilities, and you wouldn't have anything to do with it. So yeah, sure, data generating is nice back then, but now when you have Gen AI, you're actually able on the spot to create vast information and create a lot of value out of it without putting too much effort into it. And of course, you have also these data validation tools have been introduced into the market. So it makes things a lot easier to bring value out of data production, which basically, if you look at the ship, it's a mining field for generating data, right? Everything is electronic. You have a bunch of sensors in it, and now the smart thing to do is the smart question is what you're going to do with it, and how you're going to implement it to create positive value.
So in this case, looking at these opportunities and the values to be added, and we think, for example, a lot of people have debate about, let's say, autonomous shipping and so on and so forth. And I will probably direct this question to Lise here. How far are we to actually obtain these autonomous vehicles? I mean, autonomous shipping, since, say, automotive industry, we already see self-driven cars around cities, around the world. How far are we to actually being able to have autonomous shipping from as of today?
Oh, it's a fool's game trying to be precise with these estimates, but I think we are still quite far away, both from the technology, but not least the legal framework and the various shipping companies being able to adopt this. But when you talk about autonomous and where is their value for us as a car carrier, if we get to autonomous loading and discharge, that would truly transform our cost structure. Today, it's an incredible manual business model where a set of drivers are just driving cars off and on board. And what that means is it generates operating costs, but it also means that we cannot use a hop and spoke model, which is seen in containers. So if that became a reality, that would truly transform our business model, probably more than autonomous ships.
And is this any different to just what it takes to automate driving a car?
Not particularly. We just, as a shipping owner, need to make sure that our infrastructure on board facilitates continuous driving in the form of Wi-Fi.
So if every single car you were carrying on a particular ship was a self-driving Tesla, would you be able to autonomously load and unload, or are there more bits that are missing?
That's a good question, yeah.
Konstantinos is moving parts around and we're thinking around.
It's a slightly more complex environment than just driving on a straight road, I think. But in theory, over time, yes.
Can I just jump in? Because if you're talking about that, one of the things probably that comes to mind is legal framework, isn't it? Probably, I'll probably pull in Stylianos, because you are there looking at a little bit distant from the discussion so far. What is your take about the legal issues arising from the AI implementation in shipping?
Yeah, my distancing is more because I don't necessarily see as much interest in the sort of operational data. Not that there isn't value, of course there is plenty of value there, but there's so many other things you can do with AI. You mentioned, putting it into devices, into hardware, and we pay a lot more attention to hardware, and we see things like, I've got an example with a startup I work with that they've built a sail for ships that can economize fuel, but problem is most seafarers these days, they've never trimmed a sail. They don't know how to sail the traditional sails. With AI, you can now transfer that skill set on board without ever training the crew. So these particular people, advanced wing systems, it's called, it's an on and off sail system. So the crew just switches it on and then it does the sailing, the system does the sailing, and it trims the sail as the ship is turning and all of this. Now, just to relate to your question, who's responsible if things go wrong? You can't blame the guy that was trimming the sail because there wasn't anyone doing this. But I'm not the lawyer in the room, so I wouldn't be able
Blame you.
to start with this.
Would you say that the lessons that we have learned with the automotive industry on autonomous driving cars will kind of say similarly being applicable to the shipping industry?
Well, I think the space to watch is defense, because there's so much going on in defense with autonomy. And when you think about maritime logistics for war applications, there's, at least from the other side of the Atlantic, there's so much going on there, investing in small autonomous platforms for logistics. And I think there's going to be a lot of advancement done there, which will sort of set some kind of framework that we can also apply to commercial transportation with autonomous platforms.
I think I can add to that a little bit. When you think about accountability, and maybe the lawyers here would pop up and thinking about fees to be collected, there is a very complex structure to keeping everything together based on agreements and mutual understandings and covenants and et cetera, et cetera. You have classification societies, you have flag state, you have so forth and so forth. Harnessing all of that together to enable and to create the infrastructure to see autonomous voyages, that's something that might be a bit complex. However, it's obviously within our capability to do so. It's a question of timing then, not a question of is it possible or not. And of course, when you talk about AI integration, then you also see AI integrated into legal framework, where you have, beside of ChatGPT hallucinating court orders, you have documents created by AI, and you have verification process with AI embedded into it. So again, it's a question of how do we pace ourselves towards that end goal, towards innovative and future.
Yeah, so just to add on autonomy, because we work on this quite a lot now. So I think, yeah, you're all right that right now the big kind of obstacle is the regulation. Like the flag states are not going to allow you to reduce the crew on the vessel for a long time, and that's probably right. It's definitely not going to do it for a technology that's completely new. And you also need someone who is finally accountable for everything, and that person has to be the master of the vessel. Right? And so those are kind of the two hard constraints. And so the question is, with that, what can you do now that will still add value? Because the value of autonomy doesn't have to be reducing the cost of human labor. There are other things that autonomy can help with. So what we focused on is fuel consumption, right? So because our kind of voyage optimization solutions already are targeted towards reducing fuel consumption, what we found is that we calculate exactly what is the optimum, say, set of speed changes across a voyage in order to burn the least amount of fuel. But there's a limitation to how closely human crews can follow those speeds, right? They're only human. You can't have someone sitting there, every 10 minutes changing the power of the engine.
You can try, it just won't happen.
Yeah, exactly. And so the initial experiment we did in silico is, okay, what is your compliance currently with our instructions? 70%. How much are you saving on your fuel? Say 6, 7%. How much would you save if you got that up to 90, right? Maybe 10, 11, okay? How much is that in dollars? And how much would it cost you to install a device which could take the optimized instructions and then automatically move the engine based on those speeds in the open sea after the pilot station, not during berthing or berthing? So that's a nice initial form of autonomy you could do now, is legal. And as long as you have the captain approve the full set of speeds optimized by the AI in the beginning, and then have an override throughout the voyage, you're not violating the accountability of the captain either. So that's something we built. It's currently installed on the first 2 ships, and it works. It's a good first step, which will produce a lot of data, which we can use as we move forward towards more and more autonomy.
And maybe I can just jump in and say, for us, it's not the legal framework that's holding us back. There are a lot of very nitty-gritty, menial challenges in getting this to work. And it's sensors breaking, sensors not working, cabling not working, not getting enough clean, consistent data to convince the master, the vessel operators, the land-based crew that this is working. That, don't underestimate the human factor in this. And I think it's those adoption practical issues that is holding us back as an industry much more than the legal framework at this stage.
It's interesting to note, I think Konstantinos touched upon that, the main difference that we see with AI being introduced into the industry versus the nuts and bolts solutions, where previously if you want to fuel save, then you just retrofit your propeller, you did a bulbous bow change, you did all sort of physical changes in the ship, and that had its own structure. It was finessed in a certain way, it was designed in a certain way. There were places where you could have done that. I'm talking about dry docking. And now when you have software tools and software-driven power, the time to value is almost instantaneous. We had a client of ours, exchanging about 4 emails between ourselves, got some historical information, and a week afterwards, you have implementation on board the vessel. So you don't need to take a position when you make a decision on how to optimize your performance. You could do that basically CapEx-free. You could do that basically on the spot. And if you're not happy with it, then you go to the other person. Which makes it much more flexible and in that way much easier to adopt. In my mind, we see that a lot with not only innovative, hungry players, but also players who are, let's call it cash lucrative, who are willing to take a dip and try and see if they like it.
Thank you. I wanted to channel a question to Stylianos here. It's just some of the parts have already been touched, but when I look, for example, at AI implementation, one of the things that we look at is the pushbacks. People, in my experience, or at least the talks that I've had with people within shipping, is that there seems to be a mixed review about full-on implementation of AI or a more conservative approach. So when we look at, for example, these pushbacks, which are a lot of times are related with accountability, skills, gaps, and so on and so forth, how do you think companies can deal with these type of situations?
Yeah, I mean, this is a classic one for technology adoption. There's always pushback. If you go back in time and, look through other technological progresses, there was always reaction. There's always the fear of becoming obsolete, which is valid. Since we have cars, no one's changing horseshoes to their horses. So all these jobs have been replaced by people replacing tires. And similarly, these days, with the introduction of a new tool, there will be jobs that will become obsolete. But there will be new jobs created that do not exist today. And we can't even imagine what these jobs are. The challenge is how do you upskill the workforce to be able to make that transition? Generally speaking, that's a government issue, maybe a collective issue as an individual company. The best we can do is try and train our crews. And that's, I think, an area where paradoxically AI can help, because it's a tool that captures knowledge, supports decision making. So you can capture that knowledge from one individual or a set of individuals that have been working a certain job for a period of time, and you can then transfer this knowledge through the tool to a new person coming into the job. For instance, one of the startups we've recently announced collaborating with is called Signal Fusion. They're working on the crew management side of things. And what they do is they analyze the voice of seafarers through telephone calls that the system is having with them. Nothing strange about it. It just listens to the frequency of the voice. And through the frequency, it can detect all sorts of early determinants of mental issues, not serious issues, but things like stress, too much stress, getting to the point of burnout or breakdown, which can become a safety issue if you have them on your ship. Now, one of my first experiences, still a university student, I went to sail on a cargo ship as a cadet, and the first person I met in the shipping company was a crew manager. This was a guy who was like a captain that had been at sea for 20 years and another 30 years in the office. And before I stepped through the door, he knew everything about me just by looking at me. It's very hard to find people like this today, and certainly not in the number that you need them as we have more and more ships. So you need expert systems that can kind of transfer those skills or capture them from the few that have them and allow everyone else to use them.
Just to like, okay, thank you. Just to capture a little bit on this collaboration, like, is this something that you see happening in a wider industry, or is it a particular application for this collaboration that you have had with Fusion?
I mean, this is the one particular company we work with, but in general, I see the ability to capture skills as something that's out there. There's another company we work with that captures skills from labor, manual labor, and transfers the knowledge for robotic systems to replicate the same work. So the whole thing of transferring skills from humans to machines is supported by AI, and I think it's going to be a game changer.
So just to capitalize, because we are almost running out to our limits here. If we were to, let's say, to measure the positives against the negatives because of the current, say, the fear or the, let's say, the conservative stand with AI implementation, what would be, for example, let's say, your advice for those that are yet to be convinced about AI? Lise, please.
I think there is very clear value. The challenge is converting the potential into reality, i.e. capturing that value. And that only happens if you understand that it's not just the technology, it's not just pushing the button. AI is part of a much wider system that requires wider engineering, data capture, data transfer, processing, and so forth. And then you need to probably double or triple or quadruple your investment in working with the people in the organization to drive the adoption and not give up when it breaks the first time, the second time, and the third time. So it's just allocate much more effort and time and resource than the vendor will tell you when you sign the contract.
Anything that you guys want to add to that?
I just say in a data-rich environment, the new working tool are AI-based. That's the bottom line. So it will be the one way or the other.
Yeah, so I just want to say that my experience in deploying AI is that the pushback people have usually is not because they're irrational or afraid of being replaced. It's because of exactly all these last mile operational problems that Lise is mentioning. So yeah, I mean, it's great to have a very fancy voice optimization, but if the cable that's transmitting the sensor to the satellite is broken, you can't do anything about it. And this is true everywhere. You could have a very fancy AI which is recording all your sales calls and is optimizing, giving you Copilot what to say. But what happens when your customer wants you to show up at the office, right? So really, you need to, I think the 99% of the work happens once you've got the prototype ready and then working with the actual users to figure out all these details. Getting your hands dirty. It's like we've moved a lot into hardware, a lot into taking ownership of actually the first part of the process of actually collecting the data and making it work in reality, understanding why people have pushback and solving the actual problem, right? If you don't do that, then it'll remain theoretical.
Well, I'd like to wrap up then because we are, I think, bang on time. I would like to thank you, my panelists. Thank you so much for your contributions. I hope that has been an eye-opener, especially for those that are a little bit skeptic about AI implementation and shipping, because it will happen. There's no mistake about it. It will happen. So thank you so much, and thank you for listening.